Hello, friends. Today I want to talk about William Adams, the first English samurai, or if you prefer, the English samurai. 1564 to 1620, those were his dates. And a lot of people will already know of Adams through the novel by James Clavell, Shogun, and also I think it was 1980, the movie. And the younger generation will know him through as John Blackthorne in the recent FX TV series, uh, which I think was 2024. So he's already featured quite a lot in popular consciousness, and his story is rather well known. Perhaps not as William Adams, but as John Blackthorne, which was the fictitious name. Which Clavel gave him, I think. So anyway, first I want to start by taking a quick look at the Wikipedia page, which is probably the most accessible thing for most people. So let's take a quick look and see what Wikipedia can tell us about Adams, William Adams. Sorry, I'm right at the bottom of the page, so I need to go back up to the top. Let's go up there. Okay. So, better known in Japan as Miura Anjin, um, although in his lifetime he was probably known as Anjin, and it may have been his son that got the name Miura, Anjin being the pilot. Uh, and he was granted samurai status, recognized as one of the most influential foreigners in Japan during the early 17th century. Yeah, that's true. Um, so he arrived on the Liefde, a Dutch ship in Kyushu, in a place called Bungo, which is near Oita, when Oita is now, Oita City. Um, and it's not far from where I live, actually. So I'm planning to go down to Usuki and Kuroshima, place where he landed, fairly soon. It's a 3 or 4 hour drive by car from where I live here in Kee-tah-kew-shoo. Anyway, so he was born in Gillingham in Kent, England in 1564. There is another place spelt the same in England, but that's Gillingham, not Gillingham. But anyway, the one in Kent is Gillingham. Um, his father died when he was 12. He was apprenticed to Master Nicholas Diggins at Limehouse. Um, During the time of the Spanish Armada, he was the master of the Richard Duffield, a resupply ship carrying ammunition and food. And we come now to the letter which he wrote to unknown friends, um, basically people in the East India Company, uh, dated 22nd of October 1611. And this part is often quoted. It's been quoted recently by Richard Irving in his 5-act introduction of Adams. I am a Kentish man, etc., etc. I'm going to read the letter itself in full a little bit later on, so I won't read it now. Um, that's the Dutch fleet of 5 ships, led by Jacques Mahu and Simon de Cordes. And the route they took, of course, was not the normal one. They didn't go by Africa, Cape Town. They went by the Straits of Magellan. And Chile features in the story. They were trying to revictual at Chile, and they were attacked by natives. I think of the Mapuche tribe. It says here something about people from Araucania, which to me would be the native Mapuche. And I think that's mentioned in some of the accounts. Anyway, he arrives on the 19th of April, 1600 in Japan. It's easy for me to remember. It's my mother's birthday, my late mother's birthday, I should say. Um, so Ieyasu takes a liking to him, uh, begins to trust him, and gets him to build two ships, which he manages to do with the help of Japanese workers and also others from the ship who have survived. There were only, I think, 23 survivors who actually, was that right? 23 or 26 survivors who actually um, made it to Japan, and then six of them, I think, died almost immediately. Um, and then the Dutch East India Company comes to Japan to trade in 1609 and is given a trade pass. You can see it on the left there, Handelspass in Dutch. And there's various other interesting illustrations. There's the Dutch trading factory here on the right. An excerpt from a letter written by William Adams at Hirado in Japan to the East India Company in London, 1st of December 1613, British Library. A letter from King James to Tokugawa Ieyasu in Tokyo University's archives, and one of the two Japanese suits of armor presented by Tokugawa Hidetada, that's the son of Ieyasu, to John Saris to convey to King James, which is now in the Tower of London. Okay. Hidetada, the son of Ieyasu, was not so favorable towards Adams as his father had been, and so his influence began to wane. I'm simplifying greatly here, of course. Uh, there's some photographs. There's Jodoji Temple in Yokosuka, and memorial towers for Anjin, Miura, and his wife. His tomb is in Hirado. There's his tomb on the right there, the grave. Sorry, the grave of Miura Anjin is now established to be in Hirado, in Kyushu, not at Yokosuka. Yes, there's mention of the best-selling novel Shogun in popular culture, a mini-series, a video game, Shogun the Musical, 1990, and the FX series Shogun. What else? So there's various things, of course. And Charles Milton, that's right, historical biography called Samurai William, 2002. A lot of people have had their go at William Adams, as it were. A lot of scholars and have written about him, and not so scholarly people also. But anyway, that's a broad introduction, very broad brush. You can of course read this in your own time, so I won't do much more of that. Um, so what I would like to talk about then is well, first of all, various books which I have obtained um, about Adams. Here's one, Adams the Pilot by William Corr. I knew William Corr, Bill Corr. He was a good man, and he encouraged me to write about Sir Ernest Sato. So he's a big influence in my life, in fact, my life as a scholar. And this is his book, which is still available. This is a new copy which I've bought from Amazon Japan, but you can get it from Routledge, I think, with a discount directly from the publisher, Routledge. This one was written in 1995, but I find it still pretty good. And one thing I like about it is that it's pretty good on references. It gives references in the format of, for example, Rogers 1956-93. So that would be Rogers is the author, then the date of the publication, and it's page 93. And then in the back of the book, you you have the bibliography in which Roger's book will be listed. If there are two books by the same author, then of course it depends on the date as to which one is being referred to, the year of publication, that is, which one is being referred to. So that's a fairly sound way of giving references, and I like it. Um, let's see what else we've got here. I've got all five acts of this, which is by Richard Irving, and he recently gave a lecture at SOAS, which I attended. I say I attended it. I was on Zoom at 2 in the morning, if you can call that attending anything. But yeah, this is instructive, very good. Um, and the references again are, yeah, I think it's done in a similar way to Bill, actually. Um, just looking at it. Uh, so you wouldn't have any trouble in finding where exactly the references came from. This is not necessarily the case with other books. So, for example, I've just mentioned Giles Milton's Samurai William, and this has got a lot of good stuff in it, very interesting. Um, and I'm sure it was well researched, no doubt. The slight problem is that there are no references in the text at all, and no footnotes and no endnotes. So what we have got in lieu of that is notes and sources at the end, but that's a rather broad brush way of dealing with the situation. So it gives you the books that he's used in a particular chapter, but it won't tell you what page of this book. All right. So if you really wanted to check in detail, you'd have to work quite hard to find exactly where the quotation came from. And he does have a lot of quotations. So that's from an academic point of view, that makes this book a little bit less easy to use and therefore less valuable for a researcher. But yeah, I mean, 2002 it was written, published, and it's got lots of interesting ideas in it, and it's well written. Of course, it's a good story, and for the general reader, I think it was very popular. He's a best-selling author, best-selling author of Nathaniel's Nutmeg before this one was published. All right, so there's that, and a little bit. Well, the most recent academic book is In the Service of the Shogun by Frederick Kreins, a Dutch gentleman, professor at Nichibunken, the Japanese cultural institution in Kyoto. It's also it's very good in many ways. It's very interesting, and I enjoyed reading it certainly. Um, but again, one wishes that the there had been footnotes or endnotes, one of the two. Um, if you look at something like Dr. Michael Cooper's Rodriguez the Interpreter, you've got lots of endnotes there, and you can check right down to the page exactly where such and such an piece of information came from. Um, and again, this is in that way, this is a little bit similar to Milton. Um, so anyway, that's the situation. But now I want to read from this book, which is Letters Written by the English Residents in Japan, 1611 to 1623. It's a reprint by Forgotten Books. Hang on. Whoops. It's not showing me Forgotten Books. But anyway, there's a rather funny cover, which looks as if it's been ripped apart, but it hasn't been. Anyway, so what I want to read from here is that letter from William Adams to unknown friends. So he was trying to make contact with, effectively with British people, the East India Company, having heard that they were close by. They had a trading post in Bantam in Java by this time. So let's let me share the relevant parts of. Let's see what we've got here. First of all, yeah, this is the contents of letters written by the English residents in Japan, and these are the letters written by Adams. They're really I think, the only written evidence of Adams from himself, as it were, that he wrote. I don't think he wrote a diary. If he did, I've not heard of it. Um, and there we are. So really, his letters are all we have from his own hand. So that's the first one is the one I want to read. William Adams to his unknown friends and countrymen, October 22nd, 1611, Japan. Okay. The next one is to his wife, a fragment, and so on and so forth. All right. So here, I've actually scanned this. This is the letter I've been talking about. Um, so if I can just move this, yeah, there we are, to make it a little bit, well, I know what we can do. Let's get rid of all this junk. There we are. That's a bit better. So I'm going to read this and see what you make of it. Letters of William Adams, letter number 1. This letter is addressed to my unknown friends and countrymen, desiring this letter by your good means, or the news or copy of this letter may come into the hands of one or many of my acquaintances in Limehouse or elsewhere, or in Kent, in Gillingham by Rochester, where Adams came from, of course, originally. Probably through the agency of their factors recently settled at Bantam, 2 copies of the letters were transmitted to the Worshipful Fellowship of the Merchants of London trading into the East Indies, and in the sequel it will be perceived the communication led to the opening of commercial intercourse between England and Japan. Purchas has given a version of this letter, Pilgrims, Volume 1, page 125, etc., but it is to be viewed as a loose paraphrase only. In the variations he has adopted, erroneously or capriciously, the sense is not infrequently destroyed, and the unaffected earnestness which characterizes the original is rarely preserved. The version now given is founded on 2 manuscript copies preserved among the records of the East India Company. Many of the variations between the printed and manuscript copies are noted, but to exhibit the whole, it would be necessary to print the 2 versions in juxtaposition, which would occupy more space than seems advisable. Now, this is quoting directly from Thomas Rundle, who published Memorials of the Empire of Japan in 1850 for the Hakluyt Society. And that's his commentary there. The Purchas's Pilgrims was published in 1625, so only 5 years after Adams's death, in fact. And this scan comes from the paperback I just showed you a moment ago, and that is from the book published by or edited by Murakami and Murakawa in Tokyo for the Sankosha Publishing Company in 1900. So you will see as we go through this that there are footnotes in Japanese, or at least partly in Japanese, and that's because this edition was by those 2 Japanese gentlemen. All right. So and then there's a P, which I think it means the printed copy. I don't think it means purchase, but anyway, the P is as it appeared in Rundle's edition of 1850. So one would really want to know from Thomas Rundle exactly what the P means, but there we are. All right, let's begin the letter then, shall we? Having so good occasion by hearing that certain English merchants lie in the island of Java, although by name unknown, I have emboldened myself to write these few lines, desiring the worshipful company, being unknown to me, to pardon my stoutness. Stoutness sounds a bit like frankness or boldness. Boldness, yes. My reason that I do write is first as conscience doth bind me with love to my countrymen and country. Your worships, to whom this present writing shall come, is to give you to understand that I am a Kentish man, born in a town called Gillingham, 2 English miles from Rochester, 1 mile from Chatham, where the king's ships do lie, and that from the age of 12 years old I was brought up in Limehouse, near London, being apprentice 12 years to Master Nicholas Diggins, and myself have served for master and pilot in Her Majesty's ships, and about 11 or 12 years have served the worshipful company of the Barbary merchants, until the Indisch traffic from Holland began, in which Indisch traffic I was desirous to make a little experience of the small knowledge which God had given me. That would be the traffic to the Indies, I suppose. Indisch traffic. So in the year of our Lord 1598, that's 10 years after the Armada, Spanish Armada, I was hired for pilot major of a fleet of 5 sail, which was made ready by the Indisch Company. Peter van der Hey and Hans van der Weyck. The general of this fleet was a merchant called Jacques Mahor. I think Mahu is the way it's written elsewhere, Mahu, in which ship, being admiral, I was pilot. So being the 23 or 24 of June, ere we set sail, it was too late ere we came to the line to pass it without contrary winds. So it was about the middest of September, at which time we found much southerly winds, and our men were many sick, so that we were forced to go to the coast of Guinea to Cape Gonzales, where we set our sick men a land, of which many died, and of the sickness few bettered, having little or no refreshing, being an unhealthful place. I think there were about 500 crew at the beginning, and a lot died on the voyage. So that to fulfill our voyage, we set our course for the coast of Brazil, being determined to pass the Straits of Magellan, and by the way came to an island called Annabona. And this is the first footnote from Rundle's edition, Ilha da Nabon, the Isle of Nabon, sorry. And the P, I think it means printed edition, but it might possibly mean purchase. Called Annabona, which island we landed at and took the town, in which was about 80 houses. In which island we refreshed ourselves, having oxen, oranges, and divers fruits, etc. But the unwholesomeness of the the air, I suppose, was very bad, that as one bettered, another fell sick. Spending upon the coast up the Cape Gonzales and up Annabona a 2 months' time till the 12th or 13th November. 1598, isn't it? At which time we set sail from Annabona, finding the winds still at the south and south by east and south southeast till we got into 4 degrees to the southwards of the line, at which time the wind did favour us coming to the southeast and east southeast, and so that we were up between the island of Annabona and the Straits of Magellano about 5 months. One of our 5 sail, her mainmast fell overboard, by which we were much hindered, for in the sea with much trouble we set a new mast. So that the 9 and 20th of March we saw the land in latitude of 50 degrees, having the wind 2 or 3 days contrary. So in the end, having the winds good, came to the Straits of Magellano, the 6th of April 1599, at which time the winter came, so that there was much snow, and with cold on the one side and hunger on the other, our men grew weak. Having at that time the wind at the northeast 6 or 7 days, in which time we might have passed through the straits. Of course, in the days of sail, the direction of the wind was all important. But for refreshing of our men, we waited, watering and taking in of wood, and setting up of a pinnace of 15 or 20 tons in burthen. That's a boat, pinnace. So at length we would have passed through, but could not by reason of the southerly winds, the weather being very cold with abundance of snow and ice. Wherefore we were forced to winter and to stay in the straits from the 6th of April till the 4 and 20th of September, 24th of September, in which time our victuals was for the most part of spent, and for lack of the same many of our men died of hunger. So having passed through the straits, and coming in the South Sea, we found many hard storms, many hard streams, P, being driven to the southward in 54, go to the next page, degrees, being very cold. At length we found reasonable winds and weather, with which we followed our pretended voyage towards the coast of Peru. But in long traves we lost our whole fleet, being separated the one from the other. Yet we had appointed before the dispersing of our fleet by storms and foul weather, that if we lost one another, that in Chile, in the latitude of 46 degrees, we should stay the one for the other the space of 30 days. So they had a rendezvous, as was normal in those times, where there was no way of communicating easily from ship to ship. In which height, according to agreement, I went in 6 and 40 degrees and stayed 8 and 20 days, where we refreshed ourselves, finding the people of the country of a good nature. But by reason of the Spaniards, the people would not trade with us. At first, they brought us sheep and potatoes, for which we gave them bills and knives, whereof they were very glad. But in the end, the people went up from their houses into the country and came no more to us. We stayed there 8 and 20 days and set up a pinnace which we had in our ship in 4 parts. So they had a ship, a small boat or a boat ready to assemble within the ship. And in the end departed and came to the mouth of Valdivia, that's Valdivia, Chile. Yet by reason of much wind, it was at that present we entered not, but directed our course out of the bay for the island of Much, that's Mocha. Unto the which the next day we came, and finding none of our fleet there, directed our course for Santa Maria, and the next day came by the Cape, which is but a league and a half from the island. And seeing many people luffed about the Cape, and finding good ground, anchored in a fair sandy bay in 15 fathom, and went with our boats hard by the waterside to parley with the people of the land, but they would not suffer us to come aland, shooting great store of arrows at us. Nevertheless, having no victuals in our ship, and hoping to find refreshing by force, we landed some 7 and 20 or 30 of our men, and drove the wild people from the waterside. Okay, so they would not trade with us at first. They brought us sheep, bells, and tossed. Yeah, tossed is luffed. Many people tossed about the Cape. All right. Most of our men being hurt with their arrows. And being on land, we made signs of friendship, and in the end came to parley with signs and tokens of friendship, the which the people in the end did understand. So we made signs that our desire was for victuals, showing them iron, silver, and cloth, which we would give them in exchange for the same. Wherefore they gave our folk wine with potatoes to eat, and drink with other fruits. and bid our men by signs and tokens to go aboard, and the next day to come again, and then they would bring us good store of refreshing. So being late, our men came aboard, very glad that we had come to a parley with them, hoping that we should get refreshing. The next day, being the 9th of November, 1599, our captain with all our officers prepared to go aland, having taken counsel to go to the waterside, but not to land more than 2 or 3 at the most. For there were people in abundance unknown to us, wild, therefore not to be trusted, which counsel being concluded upon, the captain himself did go in one of our boats with all the force that we could make. And being by the shore side, the people of the country made signs that they should come aland, but that did not well like our captain. In the end, the people not coming near unto our boats, our captain with the rest resolved to land, contrary to that which was concluded aboard our ship, before their going aland. At length 23 men landed with muskets and marched upwards towards 4 or 5 houses, and when they were about a musket shot from the boats, more than 1,000 Indians, which lay in ambush, immediately fell upon our men with such weapons as they had, and slew them all to our knowledge. So our boats did long wait to see if any of them did come again, but being all slain, our boats returned, which sorrowful news of all our men's deaths was very much lamented of us all, for we had scarce so many men left as could wind up our anchor. The next day we weighed anchor, and went over to the island of Santa Maria, where we found our admiral, who had arrived there 4 days before us, and departed from the island of Mocha, the day before we came from thence, having the general master and all his officers murdered aland, so that all our officers were slain, the one bemoaning the other. Nevertheless, both glad to see the one the other, and that we were so well met together. My good friend Timothy Shotton was pilot in that ship. Timothy Shotton had been on Cavendish's circumnavigation, Thomas Cavendish's circumnavigation after Drake. That is the Thomas Lockley's book about Cavendish's expedition. Being at the island of Santa Maria, which lieth in the latitude to the southward of the line of 37 degrees 12 minutes on the coast of Chile, we took counsel to take all things out of one ship and to burn the other, but that the captains that were made knew the one nor the other would not, so that we could not agree to leave the one or the other. And having much cloth in our ships, it was agreed that we should leave the coast of Peru and direct our course for Japan, having understood that, Japan that is, of course, having understood that cloth was good merchandise there. And also how upon that coast of Peru the king's ships were out seeking us, having knowledge of our being there, understanding that we were weak of men, which was certain. For one of our fleet, for hunger, was forced to seek relief at the enemy's hand in Santiago, I presume. Santiago, surely. For which reason, having refreshed ourselves in this island of Santa Maria, more by policy than by force, we departed the 27th of November from the island of Santa Maria with our 2 ships, and for the rest of our fleet we had no news of them. So we stood away directly for Japan, and passed the equinoctial line together, that would be the equator, wouldn't it? Until we came in 28 degrees to the northward of the line, in which latitude we were about the 23rd of February 1600. We had a wondrous storm of wind, as ere I was in, with much rain, in which storm we lost our consort, our escort, the other ship, whereof we were very sorry. Nevertheless, with hope that in Japan we should meet the one the other, we proceeded on our former intention for Japan, and in the height of 30 degrees sought the northernmost cape of the forenamed island, but found it not, by reason that it lieth false in all cards and maps and globes. For the cape lieth in 35 degrees, which is a great difference. In the end, in 32 degrees, we came in sight of the land, being the 19th day of April. So that between the Cape of Santa Maria and Japan, we were 4 months and 22 days. That's crossing the Pacific, 4 months and 22 days. Extraordinary voyage. At which time there were no more than 6 beside myself that could stand upon his feet. So we in safety let fall our anchor about a league from a place called Bungo. At which time came to us many boats, and we suffered them to come aboard. We allowed them to come aboard, being not able to resist them, which people did us no harm, neither of us understanding the one the other. Within 2 or 3 days after our arrival, there came a Jesuit from a place called Nagasaki, to which place the Karak of Macau is yearly wont to come, which with other Japoners that were Christians were our interpreters, which was not to our good, our mortal enemies being our Truchmen. Nevertheless, the king of, Truchmen, number 8. Okay. Which was ill for us, they being our mortal enemies. Nevertheless, the king of Bungo, the place where we arrived, showed us great friendship, for he gave us an house a land, where we landed our sick men and had all refreshing that was needful. We had, when we came to anchor in Bungo, sick and whole, 24 men, of which number the next day 3 died, so down to 21. The rest, for the most part, recovered, saving 3, which lay a long time sick, and in the end also died, so down to, 18. In which time of our being here, the emperor, hearing of us, sent presently fine galleys or frigates to us to bring me to the court, where his highness was, which was distant from Bungo about 80 English leagues. So that as soon as I came before him, he demanded of me what country we were, This is the emperor being the shogun, in fact, Ieyasu in Osaka, I think. Demanded of me of what country we were, so I answered him in all points, for there was nothing that he demanded not, both concerning war and peace between country and country, so that the particulars here to write would be too tedious. And for that time I was commanded to prison, being well used with one of our mariners that came with me to serve me. I think that was Melchior van Zandvoort. Bill Core gives the names of all the people on the ship. 2 days after, the emperor called me again, demanding the reason of our coming so far. I answered, we were a people that sought all friendship with all nations, and have trade in all countries, bringing such merchandise as our country did afford into strange lands in the way of traffic. He demanded also as concerning the wars between the Spaniard or Portingal and our country, and the reasons, the which I gave him to understand of all things, which he was glad to hear, as it seemed to me. In the end I was commanded to prison again, but my lodging was bettered in another place. So that 39 days I was in prison, hearing no more news, neither of our ship nor captain, whether he were recovered of his sickness or not, nor of the rest of the company. In which time I looked every day to die, to be crossed, that is, crucified, as the custom of justice is in Japan, as hanging is in our land. Of course, the actual method of crucifixion is different, but in which long time of imprisonment, the Jesuits and the Portingals, the Portuguese, gave many evidences against me, and the rest to the emperor, me and the rest to the emperor, to the shogun, Ieyasu, that we were thieves and robbers of all nations, and were we suffered to live, were we allowed to live, it should be against the profit of his highness and the land, for no nation should come there without robbing. His highness justice being executed, the rest of our nation, excuse me, without doubt, should fear and not come here any more. Thus daily making access to the emperor and procuring friends to hasten my death. But God, that is always merciful at need, showed mercy unto us, and would not suffer them to have their wills of us. In the end, the emperor gave them answer, Ieyasu answered them, that we as yet had done to him nor to none of his land any harm or damage, therefore against reason and justice to put us to death. If our country had wars the one with the other, that was no cause that he should put us to death. So just because the Portuguese and Spanish were fighting with the Dutch and the English, that's not a reason for Ieyasu to have the Dutch and English put to death. With which they were out of heart that their cruel pretence failed them, for which God be for evermore praised. Now, in this time that I was in prison, the ship was commanded to be brought so near to the city where the emperor was, as might be for grounding her, the which was done. So the ship was brought to, now was that Yedo? Not sure. Or Osaka. 41 days being expired, the emperor caused me to be brought before him again, demanding of me many questions more which were too long to write. I think Edo. In conclusion, he asked me whether I were anxious, so were desirous to go to the ship to see my countrymen. I answered very gladly, which he bade me do. So I departed and was freed from imprisonment. And this was the first news that I had that the ship and company were come to the city. So that with a rejoicing heart I took a boat and went to our ship, where I found the captain and the rest recovered of their sickness. And when I came aboard with weeping eyes was received, for it was given them to understand that I was executed long since. Thus God be praised, all we that were left alive came together again. From the ship all things were taken out, so that the clothes which I took with me on my back I only had. All my instruments and books were taken. Not only I lost what I had in the ship, but from the captain and the company generally, what was good or worth the taking was carried away. All which was done unknown to the emperor, to the shogun, Ieyasu. So in process of time, having knowledge of it, he commanded that they which had taken our goods should restore it to us back again. But it was here and there so taken that we could not get it again. Saving 5,000 reals in ready money was commanded to be given us, and in his presence brought and delivered in the hands of one that was made our governor, who kept them in his hands to distribute them unto us as we had need, for the buying of victuals for our men, with other particular charges. So they were compensated. Adams and the other crew were compensated for the loss of their possessions. So in the end of 30 days, our ship lying before the city called Sakai, okay, so that's south of Osaka, 2.5 leagues or 3 leagues from Osaka, where the emperor at that time did lie, commandment came from the emperor, the shogun, that our ship should be carried to the easternmost part of the land called Kanto. Whither, according to his commandment, we were carried. Yes, okay, so then they go to Edo, the distance being about 120 leagues. Our passage thither was long by reason of contrary winds, so that the emperor was there long before us. Coming to the land of Kanto and near to the city Edo, where the emperor was, being arrived, I sought all means by supplications to get our ship clear and to seek our best means, our best profit, to come where the Hollanders had their trade, in which suit we spent much of the money given us. Also in this time 3 or 4 of our men rebelled against the captain and myself, and made a mutiny with the rest of our men, so that we had much trouble with them. For they would not abide no longer in the ship, but every one would be a commander, and perforce would have every one part of the money that was given by the emperor. It would be too long to write the emperor. It would be too long to write the particulars. So there seems to be a misprint or something going on there. It would be too long to write the particulars. In the end, the money was divided according to every man's place, but this was about 2 years that we had been in Japan, and when we had a denial that we should not have our ship but to abide in Japan. So that the part of everyone being divided, everyone took his way where he thought best. In the end, the emperor gave every man to live upon 2 pounds of rice a day, daily, and yearly so much as was worth 11 or 12 ducats a year, yearly, myself, the captain and mariners all alike. So in process of 4 or 5 years, the emperor, the Shogun Ieyasu, called me as divers times he had done before. So one time above the rest, he would have me to make him a small ship. I answered that I was no carpenter and had no knowledge thereof. Well, do your endeavour, saith he. Gambatte kudasai, do your best. If it be not good, it is no matter. Wherefore, at his command, I built him a ship of the burthen of 80 tons, weighing 80 tons, or thereabout, which ship being made in all respects as our manner is, the western style, he coming aboard to see it liked it very well, by which means I came in more favour with him, so that I came often in his presence, who from time to time gave me presents, and at length a yearly stipend to live upon, much about 70 ducats by the year, with 2 pounds of rice a day daily. Now, being in such grace and favour, by reason I taught him some points of geometry, and understanding of the art of mathematics with other things. I pleased him so that what I said he would not contrary, at which my former enemies did wonder, and at this time must entreat me to do them a friendship, which to both Spaniards and Portingals have I done, recompensing them good for evil. So they tried to have him killed, but he was generous to them. Adams was generous to the Portuguese and the Spanish. So to pass my time to get my living, it hath cost me great labour and trouble at the first, but God hath blessed my labour. In the end of 5 years, I made supplication to the king to go out of this land, desiring to see my poor wife and children according to conscience and nature. With the which request the emperor was not well pleased, and would not let me go any more for my country, but to bide in his land. Yet in process of time, being in great favour with the emperor, the shogun, I made supplication again, by reason we had news that the Hollanders, the Dutch, were in Xi'an and Patania, which rejoiced us much, with hope that God should bring us to our country again by one means or other. So I made supplication again, and boldly spake myself with him, at which he gave me no answer. I told him if he would permit me to depart, I would be a means that both the English and Hollanders should come and traffic there, trade there. But by no means he would let me go. I asked him leave for the captain, the which he presently granted me. So by that means my captain got leave, and in a Japan junk sailed to Pultan, and in a year's space came no Hollanders. In the end, he went from Patane to Yor, where he found a fleet of 9 sail, of which fleet Matleif was general, and in this fleet he was made master again, which fleet sailed to Malacca and fought with an armado of Portingals, Portuguese, in which battle he was shot and presently died, so that as yet I think no certain news is known whether I be living or dead. Therefore I do pray and entreat you in the name of Jesus Christ to do so much as to make my being here in Japan known to my poor wife, in a manner a widow, and my 2 children fatherless, which thing only is my greatest grief of heart and conscience. I am a man not unknown in Ratcliffe and Limehouse, London, by name to my good master Nicholas Diggins and Mr. Thomas Best and Mr. Nicholas Isaac and William Isaac, brothers, with many others, also to Mr. William Jones and Mr. Beckett. Therefore may this letter come to any of their hands, or the copy. I do know that compassion and mercy is so that my friends and kindred shall have news that I do as yet live in this vale of my sorrowful pilgrimage, the which thing again and again I do desire for Jesus Christ his sake. Yeah, he feels like a pilgrim. You shall understand that the first ship that I did make a voyage or 2 in, and then the king commanded me to make another, which I did, being of the burthen of 120 tons. So from 80 tons, the next one was 120 tons weight. In this ship I have made a voyage from Miyako, that's Kyoto, to Edo, to Tokyo, being as far as from London to the Lizard or the Land's End of England, which in the year of our Lord 1609 the king lent to the governor of Manila to go with 80 of his men to sail to Acapulco, that's Acapulco, Mexico. In the year 1609 was cast away a great ship called the San Francisco, being about 1,000 tons, upon the coast of Japan in the latitude of 35 degrees and 50 minutes. By distress of weather, she cut overboard her main mast and bore up for Japan, and in the night, unawares, the ship ran upon the shore and was cast away, in the which 36 men were drowned and 340 or 350 saved, in which ship the governor of Manila as a passenger was to return to Nova España, Mexico, New Spain. But this governor was sent in the bigger ship which I made in the year 1610 to Acapulco, and in the year 1611 this governor returned another ship in her room with a great present, and with an ambassador to the emperor, the Shogun, giving him thanks for his great friendship, and also sent the worth of the emperor's ship in goods and money, which ship the Spaniards have now in the Philippines. Now for my service, which I have done and daily do, being employed in the emperor's service, he hath given me a living like unto a lordship in England, with 80 or 90 husbandmen, that be as my slaves or servants, which, or the like precedent, was never here before given to any stranger. Thus God hath provided for me after my great misery, and to him only be all honour and praise, power and glory, both now and ever, world without end. Now, whether I shall come out of this land I know not. Until this present there hath been no means, but now, through the trade of the Hollanders, there is means. In the year of our Lord 1609, 2 Holland ships came to Japan. Their intention was to take the carrack that yearly came from Macau, that's the Portuguese ship, trading ship, being 5 or 6 days too late. Nevertheless, they came to Hirado, and came to the court to the emperor, where they were in great friendship received, making condition with the emperor yearly to send a ship or 2. And so with the emperor's pass they departed. Permit of the emperor, the Shogun. Now this year 1611 there is a small ship arrived with cloth, lead, elephant's teeth, that's ivory, damask and black taffeties, raw silk, pepper, and other commodities, and they have showed cause why they came not in the former year 1610. According to promise yearly to come. This ship was wondrously well received. You understand that the Hollanders have here an Indies of money. For out of Holland there is no need of silver to come into the East Indies. For in Japan there is much silver and gold to serve for the Hollanders to handle where they will in the East Indies. Handle as in trade. But the merchandise which is here vendible for ready money, silk, damask, black taffeties, black and red cloth of the best, lead and such like goods. So now, understanding by this Holland ship lately arrived here that there is a settled trade by my countrymen in the East Indies, I presume that amongst them some, either merchants, masters, or mariners, must needs know me. Therefore I have emboldened myself to write these few lines in brief, being desirous not to be over tedious to the reader. This island of Japan is a great land, and lieth to the northwards in the latitude of 48 degrees, and it lieth east by north, and west by south or west-southwest, 220 English leagues. The people of this land of Japan are good of nature, courteous above measure, and valiant in war. Their justice is severely executed without any partiality upon transgressors of the law. They are governed in great civility. I mean not a land better governed in the world by civil policy. The people be very superstitious in their religion, and are of divers opinions. There be many Jesuits and Franciscan friars in this land, and they have converted many to be Christians, and have many churches in the island. That be the island of Kyushu, I think. Thus, in brief, I am constrained to write, hoping that by one means or other in process of time I shall hear of my wife and children, and so with patience I wait the good will and pleasure of Almighty God. Therefore I do pray all them, or every one of them, that if this my letter shall come to their hands, to do the best, that my wife and children and my good acquaintance may hear of me, by whose good means I may in process of time before my death hear news or see some of my friends again, the which thing God turn it to his glory. Amen. Dated in Japan, the 22nd of October, 1611, by your unworthy friend and servant, to command in what I can, William Adams. So that's the end of his letter to unknown friends. The next one is his letter to his wife, number 2, which I will not read now. Perhaps save it for later. So thank you anyway for persevering and listening to my reading up to this point, or following along in the text as I read, whichever is your preferred way of doing these things. And yes, I will be in touch again soon. But I always think it's good to go back to the primary sources, and this is exactly what Adams wrote, as far as we know. From it would be handwritten, of course. So from the manuscripts transcribed and published, first in 1850 by Thomas Rundle. All right. Well, thank you very much, and goodbye for now. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.